It looks like we got Don here. I'm going to bring him in right now. And
hey, Nate.
If you have questions for him, please put those in the chat. But Don, can you hear me? Hey, how are you?
Yeah, how you doing, Nate?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for it's good to see you again, and thank you so much for coming back into one of my groups here. We have right now there's about 10 of us online. There's 9 right now. There's been 9 or 10, but we have 300 in the group, so 350 people, men and women in the group. And this group is all about unleashing the leader within. We're doing a 5-day challenge, and just to get a little bit better together inside of our life. Tomorrow they have a big task ahead of them. They don't know what it is yet, so I'm not going to spoil it, but excited for that. And the big focus for us inside of here is a big part of it is taking care of your health, your fitness, your body. And I know as a Navy SEAL and as just a part of kind of who you are as a person, that's a big piece of your life. Is, you know, we only have one body, and if we want to be around a long time, we want to be a good example for others. It's important that we live the lifestyle that would match that. And so ask you some questions. I can put them in the chat, and I'll respond. I also have a few more copies of your book that are autographed that we're going to give away for anyone that asks some great questions that you can answer, and maybe just take a few minutes for you to do that. But maybe could you just give a little bit of a background on yourself to everybody that's listening in or might be watching later on the recording?
Sure, Nate. It's good to be back with you.
Can you hear me?
And I'm always so impressed by all you do and all the good word you put out there with so many people. But and I love the topic tonight, you know, because, you know, we all are leaders at some point in our lives. And, you know, I like to quote old Bob Dylan songs and old rock and roll songs. But I used to work for this doctor, colonel in the Air Force, and he used to always say, you've got to serve somebody. So everybody's got a boss. You've got to serve somebody, but you're always going to be a boss at some point. And of course, I've been both, and it's really a lot easier not being the boss. But I believe, Nate, I believe that a good leader, a good boss, a good person in charge, a good commander is a person who listens. And he listens to those who work with him or for him. And he's got to listen. He's got to listen. This guy might not be the most articulate. He might be lower ranking. He might be brand new to the company, but he might have a great idea. And if you shut him off and you don't listen at that point, most likely you'll never get a good idea out of the person or a good plan. So I believe listening is the number one thing. And to understand that you always have to think of where you started. You know, at some point you are the lowest level. You come in the bottom rung of that ladder. And wouldn't it have been great back then in those times that if somebody above you listened to you, and if they did, how much you'd want to work for that person because you felt respected. So I think the most important thing is listen to people, even if they don't have an idea that's worthwhile, hear them out because the next idea they have might be a good one. And you know, I watched a convention last night. I really liked a lot what I heard. But one is treat everybody, treat the janitor, treat the window washer, treat the CEO all with respect. And someday, and this isn't why you do it, but someday it's going to turn around and come back on you. And people, and this happens to me quite a bit actually, people say, you know, you didn't know who I was. You signed this thing for me. You told me this. And I was a young boy or I was a young man. And now I just served my 4th tour in Iraq as a commander. And I just want to tell you, you taking the time to say a few words to me meant a lot. But we're all going to be in a position, we all are in a position that we could influence, and we will influence people. And we listen to them, we listen to what they have to say, and we treat everybody with respect. And that's what I think is a good leader.
Love it. I got a question here for you from Ray Hewitt. With the uncertainty of today's times and today's issues, Do you feel it's better to be outspoken as a leader or keep opinions to yourself and lead by action?
Boy, Ray, I think about that all the time because I know we're not talking, it's not a political show, I know, but I do think the silent majority, the people who are staying silent because they don't want to rock the boat, it's letting the squeaky wheel get all the grease. And in my own opinion, which I firmly believe in, is those who don't speak up and those who can speak up and make a difference and they don't, it's hurting our country. And I think, I'm totally against the riots and everything that they're doing and the burning down of our cities. And I know they're trying to make a point, but a point doesn't have to be made that way. Personally, for me, I spent the last 45 years, and I'm still doing it, supporting our country. It breaks my heart. It kills me. It's like a knife going through the dagger, seeing people trying to tear it down. We're only 244 years old. Why destroy what we have? I mean, we're the greatest country in this world, and it's never going to be perfect. It'll never be perfect. And I've been all over the world. I don't know one other place I'd rather be than here. Every time I went anywhere else in the world, it was always a U.S. appreciation tour. I can't wait to get back to the United States of America. And I can tell you one thing, those people out destroying our cities, burning our cities, they haven't been anywhere. They absolutely haven't been anywhere better than the United States. And for them to destroy what we have, it pains me beyond belief. So for us to stay silent and not speak up like that, I think it's just letting the squeaky wheel get all that grease, and the people they're voting in is allowing it. And before long, we're going to be another Venezuela, and it can happen in November. So I'm very, very concerned, but I'm also very alert and aware of the fact that if you speak up in the wrong way, or if you try to go eye to eye in the same way the other side is doing, it can be very destructive and damaging and not get anywhere. So I do think the point has to be made, and it has to be made to people so it's not in a vicious way and it's not in an insulting way, but it's a matter of fact. I don't think we can be silent anymore.
Yeah. Thank you. Next question, we got Ian Hahn. Do you believe there was anything you did that was unique or a different perspective or strategy that separated you from fellow peers on your way to reaching your goals?
Well, I respect every peer I had. I think my strength, if I had to pick out a strength we all had strengths and weaknesses. I had a lot of weaknesses. But I'd say one of my greatest strengths was the limit I would push myself. And I think if I had to say, where's your strength? What makes you a little bit different than maybe some of the guys? That would be it. But boy, you want to list the weaknesses, we'd be here for a long time. I had a bunch of weaknesses too. Maybe because I knew I had weaknesses, I knew I had to try harder in some areas, is the reason I knew I had to push myself so hard. Because I remember thinking, I don't want anybody in the world training harder than me. As an athlete, I don't want anybody in the world training harder than I am preparing to be a SEAL. And I thought, if I sleep too long, if I take too many breaks, if I don't work out every single day a lot, someone else is going to be, and they're going to get that spot, or they're going to come in before me. And that's how I thought. Train harder than the enemy. They're not the enemy, but train harder than the enemy. If we don't, as a country, train harder than our enemy gets stronger. We don't sit still, we slide backwards. And that's how I look at life. You have to train hard. And I like training to the point of, I've pushed myself. I know I've told you this before, to the point of bleeding or passing out or hallucinating. And I just took it to the extremes. But if I didn't have that mindset, I wouldn't have accomplished the things that I'm proud of that I've accomplished in life.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I got a question for you. We've had a lot of questions around how do you prioritize? You know, a lot of people struggle prioritizing their health and their fitness, and it gets put to the back burner. And I think we all kind of realize how important it is. But, you know, the question is always, how do I motivate myself, or how do I get myself to prioritize working out and taking care of my body in my life? What do you do to do that? How did that happen for you?
The single best decision I ever made in my life as an athlete is I made the commitment to work out every day of the year without a day off. And it couldn't be some arbitrary little, okay, I did 30 sit-ups, that's my workout. If I really couldn't get a solid workout in, my minimum had to be 30 minutes of something. And I learned this from one of the world's greatest triathletes, and that's what he told me he did. And he went on to become legendary, Dave Scott. He told me he works out every day. So I worked out every day from that conversation. And then I took it for every day for 20 years. And I went on over just about 22 years, just over 22 years without a day off. And I got hurt, so I had to take some time off. But now, you know, all these years later, I can't say I work out every day, but I can say I don't think a week in my life has gone by where I haven't worked out at least 5 days in a week. And being consistent. Every day I know I have to brush my teeth. Every day I know I have to eat. Every day I know I have to sleep. But my situation, every day I know I have to work out. And by doing that, I never got out of shape. And I made it a priority. I didn't put it over family. I didn't put it over crises, because if I couldn't do it, I just didn't. But during that 22-year time frame, nothing got in the way. When I was hospitalized, that got in the way. What is it to take a half hour? We have 24 hours in a day. Taking a half hour, if you saw the statistics on how many hours a day most people watch TV or on a computer, playing computer games or whatever they do, or watch movies on a computer, I mean, you could easily take a half hour. Most people can easily take a half hour out of those activities, if you want to call them activities, and they can work out. And a half hour a day, if you work out, you'll stay in shape somewhat.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. We got Mike. He asks, how did you separate the time being a SEAL in your training life versus your family time?
Well, I failed, to tell you the truth, initially, because I failed.
Yeah.
And I'm not proud of it. Actually, I feel terrible that it happened. But I was so focused, and nothing was going to get in my way of being a SEAL or going to BUDS, or graduating from BUDS and doing the best I can and getting to a SEAL team and deploying and just doing everything with the team guys. I didn't pay enough attention at home. And I gave too much to the job, and I let family drop, and I got divorced. And I went to a conference where I was there with a lot of authors, and the #1 best-selling author in the world was there. Patterson's his name, James Patterson. And although I wasn't too thrilled by his talk, he did say something that I was fascinated by. He said, you can throw a lot of balls up in the air, and you can keep them up in the air for the most part, and if you drop one, you pick it up. He said, but don't let the family ball drop, because that can shatter. And I let mine shatter. So now I see things differently because of that and other things. But now I see an imaginary line that we all have. We have this imaginary line. Sorry about the camera shifting. We have this imaginary line. And if you push too hard at anything, being a runner, being a cyclist, being a triathlete, being a SEAL, being a firefighter, being a police officer, but if you push too hard at anything, you go over that line, something else is going to break, or you're going to get hurt, or you're going to get sick. In my case, my liver and kidneys were shutting down, and that's why I was hospitalized. If you're a piano player and all you do is practice, relationships are going to fall to pieces. Everything else can start falling apart. I believe back then, unless you go over that line and go way over it to the point of pushing yourself till you're bleeding or hallucinating or passing out, you're not giving it your all, and you're leaving something on the table. And I never wanted to be that person, but I realized I was wrong. But now I believe I know what I should have been doing. And this is what I like to advise anybody who's interested in listening to me on this, is now I believe there is that line, identify where that line is, go up and touch it, and then back off. You go back and take care of everything else so nothing else breaks, or you're giving enough attention to the other things so they don't fall to pieces. But don't go over the line. And it took me over 20 years to figure that out, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Once I figured it out, I got more accomplished because I wasn't overdoing things and having to fix things that were falling to pieces.
Yeah, yeah. I love it. Thank you. We're going to grab one more. I want to respect your time. So we're going to grab one more question here. And then we'll wrap this up. One of the guys here, Durand Yates, he says he's ran a 50-mile ultra marathon. What do you learn training and finishing for a 100-miler that you don't learn from training and finishing a 50-miler? I guess essentially, is there a big difference between the step from the 50 to 100 that you learn training and finishing 100 versus 50?
Well, boy, congratulations on finishing a 50. That's a big deal. That's painful. That's painful. Mm-hmm. 50K was always my favorite distance. 50-miler just hurts so much more, and 100-miler, 100K was all the worse. But anyways, I would like to defer that question to a friend of mine who's one of the greatest runners in the United States. His name's David Horton. And David Horton has run across the United States, and he had the Appalachian Trail record. When he ran across the United States, I believe he ran 65 miles a day or something for 40 days. He's unbelievable. He had the Leadville 100-mile record, all these 100-mile records. The guy is a stud. He's a professor at Lynchburg University now. But David Horton told me once, he said, Don, I'm going to give you a little bit of advice. He said, but don't take it just as a runner. Think about it as a human being in general. He said, run a marathon. That'll test your body. A lot of people do that. But why not go further? Run a 50-miler because that'll test your mind. And so in David's words, who's a lot more qualified of a runner than I ever was, but in David's words, you do a 50-miler, you're testing your body and your mind. He said, why not go the next step? Do a 100-miler, and that'll test your spirit because you're pulling in way deep. And you've wanted to quit maybe 50 miles before the finish line, and you keep going, you're going to learn so much about yourself. It's almost insurmountable on what you can learn about yourself when you push yourself that hard and that long. The shorter you push yourself, the shorter duration and the less intensity, the less you learn about yourself.
Yeah, I couldn't say that any better. I appreciate that. That's I love it. So, Don, thank you so much. You're always so willing to come out and help and share, and I just really appreciate it. So, thank you for being here. It's really an honor and a privilege to have you here, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Nate, and thanks for asking. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Have a good night. All right, folks, that's it for tonight. We'll get this recorded. And or it is recorded, so it'll be posted in the group, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.